Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is Debbie G of Spirituality Gone Wild.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Our friend Neo is off. He's helping his father to celebrate a birthday today. So happy birthday to Neo's father. But we are going to continue on. And it's been a few weeks since I've seen Debbie. Debbie and hubby were in Hawaii. They were having a great time in the beautiful state, the state that everybody wishes they were in most of the time. How was it? Was it as beautiful as you thought it would be?
It was crazy awesome. Hey, everybody, what's going on? It's been a minute. Yeah, it was awesome. Seriously, like I really enjoyed the culture that we found on the Hilo side. We went. Nice. My favorite part about it was the volcanoes, but also going to a chocolate. It was a chocolate vanilla bean, coffee bean farm.
Wow.
And eating chocolate that's raw, which is actually more like a juicy fruit with a really bitter center.
Right.
That's what chocolate's like. It's really awesome. It's just, so now I love chocolate more than ever. And I think it's beautiful. But yeah, who's going to go wrong? You've got vanilla, chocolate, and coffee beans.
It's a tough combination, I'm telling you.
Beautiful. Yeah. Seriously, it was awesome. But no, Hawaii was rad and I love it. And other than that, we've been all over. Now we're in Colorado at the Gratitude Ranch. And it's cold.
It's real cold. I love what you were telling us before we got started, how you were so excited for the first 5 minutes that it was snowing. Oh, that was a great way to describe it.
It was snowing. I woke, it was, okay, so you watch the movies and it's magical and everybody goes off to sleep. Night, good night, John Boy. Good night, Mary Ellen. Night, Grandma. Good night, Grandpa. Then you wake up in the morning and there's all this beautiful snow. And you go, and the angels have sung. And, that's exactly what it was like. You woke up, and then, of course, you're watching the snowflakes come down and they're all soft and billowy. And it's wonderful for the first 5 minutes. And then it gets cold. And
that's right.
And I'm just, so it's definitely, it's an adjustment.
Well, especially for a girl from Huntington Beach. I mean, that's a big adjustment.
So sad. You know what, Huntington? I'm going to tell you what. This is hilarious. So literally, like right before we left, it was raining, like bad in Huntington, and I'm like, "What are y'all trying to get me ready, or what?" Like, it's like definitely like here, sweetheart.
It's kind of unusual, actually.
And actually, we haven't had no rain. It just snowed. That was the trippy part. It doesn't rain. It just snows and it sticks. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't snow for 5 seconds. It just sticks. But anyway, I want to just find some gratitude in the fact that, it's been a long journey here. And I'm not going to be on long today. I want to stay long enough to hear Jonathan a little bit because I'd like to know about Brodacious because that's what he's going to be talking about. But what I wanted to jump on and just say, I'm not going to be here for a couple of weeks, but I'll be back. And I'm getting ready to have an interesting surgery. And this one's challenging because it's going to be a scar here. So, I mean, if my neck folded right there, I don't know if that would be good or bad, actually. But, hey, vain. She's so vain.
No, that is not the word I would apply.
I would apply that. Are you kidding me? Are you joking? Oh,
that's not vanity.
Look at my fingers. Look at my hand.
I see them. I see the nails.
Do you see my hands? Do you see my nails? Do you see all that? My hair? Do you see?
But where's the line between vanity and self-care?
I think that's a really good point. And I think I do joke a lot about vanity, but really I do honestly, if it makes you feel good about you and you're doing it for yourself, the line is, who are you doing it for?
Yes,
who are you doing it for? Are you doing it for somebody else? Are you doing it for yourself? These are for me. I promise you, even though I do feel a little kitty-like.
That's cool though. I like that. You're doing it for you, and so Jonathan's loving this. but I mean, you're doing it for you, which is exactly the right reason, and that means you're going to be vibing right now. You're going to feel good off of it. That's why you want to do that kind of self-care. That's beautiful.
Look. Yeah, man.
So let's bring our guest out. His name is Jonathan Boyd. He is the host of a podcast called A Brodacious Life. I'm going to be very
so rad
to find out what Brodacious is all about. This is going to be kind of cool. So Jonathan, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing better than I deserve. It's just a nice, wonderful day here. It's not absolutely sweating your butt crack off hot outside of Mississippi.
Okay.
We're used to that year round here. We go swimming in like Christmas and Thanksgiving here. It still always stays pretty hot. We actually had our first little icicles on the grass last night as a good old country boy. I kind of like it. Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I'm a big boy. I don't get to wear a whole lot of nice clothes, like the button ups and all that stuff. So I got to wear a nice button up, a pullover,
There you go.
I got my full Carlton look on last night. It was awesome.
I love it. Did you do the little dance?
I wish I could. I'm not that talented.
Unfortunately,
I have the legs of a lumberjack also. So I don't have those moves. I wish I did.
Yeah, but it only matters if you're doing it in your mind. I mean, if you're Carlton in your mind, that's what counts.
There we go. I can get it going on.
There you go. All right.
I love it. Actually, you know what? I actually dig the fact that I know who Carlton is.
We're almost into a generation that does not know who Carlton is.
I can't.
I don't think my younger kids know. And that's we're gonna have a whole TV moment that we're going to have to watch and just make sure I educate them on the next round of, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air,
Seriously. Well, it's funny because one of my teachers just asked that. It was an extra credit point. If you can finish this part, it was the Bel-Air song. And I was laughing going, oh, that's hilarious. But yeah. Generationally, it's like we see these changes coming and it's quite a trip. So anyway, but Jonathan, what Brodacious, that is,
talk about that, man. Oh,
please. I got to hear this.
Brodacious life. We wanted to live our best life possible, right? I want you to be happy. I want you to feel free. I want you to feel good in your skin and how that you feel day to day. So how do we do that? How do we live this wonderful life that's called Brodacious? So Brodacious for us on a Brodacious life comes down to this magical pyramid, if you will. In the base of that pyramid of self-importance, we focus on faith. Then comes family, freedom. And freedom is not just, good old America freedom. Freedom is freedom from the bonds and chains that hold you back from being yourself. Maybe that's, for me, that used to be drug addiction. A lot that's also coming from the chef's world. That also has a lot to do with, my work and my work life. I felt I've always had to just work. I never took that time for my mental health and to be with my family. And then the next part of that is finance, and the top part of that is fun. And why we have it in that order is without faith or, some sort of moral compass, the others kind of can get wonky. You need faith, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in Jesus. I respect that everybody has their own different beliefs and faith, but what it is about having that moral compass, and of course, family coming next, and then it's your personal freedom, and then your finances in the top bit. If you're doing all that other, it's going to come naturally anyways, but the top one is fun.
But where does the name Brodacious come from? That's kind of cool.
So it's kind of just a word that my brother, Dr. J, he's my co-host. And that's just a word that he and I just goofed off with. And we've just said that word 1,000 times over the past 20 years, just kind of goofing off in college land with beers in our hand, probably just, just say, oh, something, Brodacious, we'll add the word bro in front of everything. So he's, I'll call him Broseph, my bro hand, my bro Montana. Bromanowski, we got the different bro words. That's how I've always just kind of goofed off with my brother.
So you've patented the prefix bro and you've adopted it for you and your family is what you've done.
Exactly. I mean, we use it here in my house. I have 6 kids. So I'll just look at one of my, I have my youngest son is 3 years old. His name's Tanner. I look at him and just be like, hey, Brokowski, get it together. And he'll just look up at me, and then he'll literally just stop crying or whatever he's got going on. He'll just look up at me, He'll just stand up and walk away. I'm like, all right, get it together. Let's go.
You're killing me. Okay, 6 kids. I have to commend you for that, because that's awesome. Try to bring my mic over here. I'm not quite situated yet. I'm looking a little. This is hilarious. Good Lord. Y'all that can't see me, good. So look. 6 kids. I just, that's awesome. 3 to what?
So I have 18. She's a junior in college. I have a 17-year-old son who's a junior.
Wait, stop. Wait, you can't go past that. Your 18-year-old is a junior in college?
She is. She's a smart
cow.
Yes, she so we've being a chef and traveling a lot, for us it was just easier to homeschool. And my wife's also she's Canadian, so it kind of gives her time, but she wants to pack the kids up. She can go back to her family's hometown up in Val-d'Or, Quebec, so they can go and hang out up there for a certain amount of time of the year, and then they can come back. So it's kind of allowed us to live an easier lifestyle, if you will, where I'm busy. I've always been working, especially since I got into executive chef roles, but she still had the flexibility. So my kids were able to go up. So yeah, she was one of those kids who she did school year round. She just didn't want to sit around all summer. She's like, I just want to knock this stuff out. Wow. So yeah, she's a junior in college and studying biomedical engineering, which is way over my head. So
I just, you're killing me. I remember the days. My sons are 30 and 34 now. But I remember the days when my 34-year-old was 15 and graduated, and then he was in college, the same stuff. And he's doing this is I tell you honestly, this is a thing for me lately, and that's why I'm having surgery. Okay. Linguistics. He was studying the now I don't even know the word for it. Oh my God. Same deal though. Heard the word, went over your head, and you're like, the origin of linguistics? What? You're going to study who and where and what? And I forget what he had told me now, because it's just not coming to me. But point being, I just said about 20 minutes before we jumped on, these kids nowadays, I looked at my husband and I went, guarantee your son is smarter than both you and your ex.
Yeah, for sure.
Just
That's
like my
kids are. Kids
my
are
kids
intelligent.
Now my granddaughter, it's over. It's over. She's 9 years old, and she was giving me descriptions on how to freaking use my cell phone. And I'm like, oh, honey, I remember when the cell phones first came out.
I've had this conversation. I'm 36 and I've had this conversation.
You're my baby. You're literally almost my baby's age. That's my point. You see, look at this generational. How deep do we appreciate the generations? But this is truly the 100th monkey. The 100th monkey is the story of the social evolution of children teaching everybody else, and social change happening when so many are doing it that becomes the social norm, right? Well, in the 100th monkey, they examined all this, and it was all of the baby monkeys that were washing their yams. It wasn't the adult monkeys or the aunts and the uncles and the grandmas and the grandparents. It was the babies. It was the children. So it's coming from this way up. And we were all taught that, we are the ones doing the teaching. And really, I think we're just the ones making sure they don't hurt themselves. And that's maybe it.
Yeah, basically the parents' role is to bring them into the world, and then you're done.
Yeah, my 3-year-old, he can open up a tablet. He knows how to get on YouTube. He can just about know. He can't spell it, but he knows to hit the search bar and can figure out what he wants in the YouTube stuff. So if he's looking for Blippi, he can get on there, and he knows this because Blippi, I don't know if you've ever had the graciousness of watching that children's show, but he says his name Blippi 1,000 times. So he knows how to find Blippi. So he can open up, and his face looks like mine. Apple does not do that good of a job with their face recognition when my little son can open up my Apple iPad with his face. And so
you are serious?
I'm dead serious.
My son can open it. No shit.
Yeah.
That's rad.
People say, oh, and then they look at my 6 kids and oh, that one looks like so-and-so. That one looks like so-and-so. Like, no, that one's definitely Jonathan's son right there.
Wow. And even to that level, that's actually, that's kind of cute. That's kind of cute. I love that. How many girls do you have?
So I have 3 boys and 3 girls.
You just are Brady bunching it all. You're just, Brady bunching it all the way through. That rocks.
There's a certain point where you hit the 4th one. You're like, just add it in. We've actually gone through the adoption process twice with ladies who are looking at maybe either aborting babies or, not wanting to be in the mom role. And we'd gone through that process twice, and everyone's just like, you can handle 2 more. And I'm like, let's do more. We can do it.
So you adopted too?
We were wanting to. Basically, what ended up happening is that both times the mothers who were looking at giving up the babies both held that baby for the first time and wouldn't let go. We're very proud of them. We're good friends with them today, and we get to celebrate them, the great moms that they are. I think people get very scared. I'm not going to go down that road too far, but people get really scared when they're first time parents, and it's very overwhelming, especially for the mother. The man, and I know this is somewhat part of society and how our society works in America, but the man, we know that we're going to go to work. At the end of the day, we're going to go to a physical job, most likely in the high percentage. We're going to go to our normal job within the next 2 weeks, and we kind of get to live on about our life. But for a woman, there is that moment of, I'm with this thing every day now. This is now literally a part of me. So I think once that shroud, I guess, gets taken away as, this is not a punishment. It's something that you're unique and you're a super being, that you created this awesome child that no one else gets to claim that. So I think that's something that's very cool. So I'm very proud of those, our friends who, made a big decision.
Actually, I am too. I love that. I think, how I'm just sitting there, like, want to recognize the awesomeness when you show up for people that are scared and you provide a place of safety. Because if more human beings can provide places of safety for each other, the world definitely could change. Because if that person who's having the child is so scared that they have support and they have somebody who can help them, it's a whole different thing, as you saw. And I love that. So I think that you provided a really unique opportunity for them to make a decision based on their level of safety. And it, sometimes we think we can't do something, and by golly, we sure can.
Well, it used to be, back in the 1950s, we had these social nets. Everybody went to church or, their synagogue or whatever it might be. So we had these different social nets to help catch the outliers of things that might fall. Maybe a woman who got pregnant outside of marriage or those kinds of things. And now we kind of we're missing that a lot in our society a little bit. And maybe that doesn't necessarily have to be the church, but it has to be some kind of support group that helps. And I think more often than not, I think that the people who understand that there is help are more willing to go through the whole process and see it for what it is. I think it's very hard when you feel isolated. It's just like when you're, anytime you're depressed or you're off, it's very hard to get back on the island when everybody else is all the way over there, when there's nothing to throw you a lifeline to bring you back.
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, it's one of the great needs of the human being, per the studies that they've done in psychology, and that is simply that we thrive in community. That's why tribes were so successful, because it was community.
And again, I think a part of this also is that, when we talk about the bottom of our pyramid is faith. We talk about, faith is not just a word. It's not just whether you're a Buddhist or you're a Christian. At the end of the day, that faith is a verb. It's not a noun. You being a Christian is not an adjective. It should be a verb. And part of that call is that you're going to go out and be active with people. I think too often, and I grew up in the church, so I'm kind of referencing the church a good bit here, so please excuse me. But I think a lot of it comes down to is, the church has become very pushed back by culture instead of the church being involved in culture. And that doesn't mean going out and pointing our finger and telling people that they're wrong. It's providing the support. It's providing the love. And the biggest message that is there in the Bible, if you've not caught it, is that, that God is love and God is grace and God is love. And it's up to you as the Christian or the believer and whatever you are to show that love. And again, that oftentimes means that we're supporting things that, maybe it's not right. Maybe it's something that we don't believe in, but we got to provide that lifeline out to help that person regardless. It's our job. It is not just something that's said on Sunday and we walk away. It's something that we got to do every single day, every day.
I think we're actually in a transition period on this kind of thing. And I'll give you a study that I became aware of. I'm like the person who advocates this study on the net. Nobody else seems to even know about this one. It was done by Sean Aker, who's one of the leaders of the positive psychology movement that has emerged within the psychology circles over the last 20, 25 years. He did this study while he was at Harvard. And it was a study where he was basically trying to figure out how can he help all those overstressed Harvard kids. They're constantly dealing with huge amounts of stress and pressure and so forth. How could he help them? He figured, well, if he could find some way to show them what it takes to be successful in their life with whatever it is they want to be successful about, then maybe that'll take some of the pressure off. So he did a study to find out what does it take to be successful. And he put together this long questionnaire. I think it had over 100 questions on it. And at the end of the day, none of the questions correlated, except for the last one that he threw on at the last second before he put the survey out there. The question was about social connectedness. And it turned out that social connectedness, if you can identify the level of social connectedness of a person, that factor all by itself is 70% accurate when it comes to predicting whether or not somebody is going to be successful in whatever it is they want to be successful in. To me, that's like one of the most fascinating things that I can encounter, the fact that we've identified that. And I think we're seeing a transition happening in our society. It's kind of being influenced by the internet. It's being influenced by 21st century technology. But I think what's happening is people are in various ways becoming aware of the importance of their own social circles or lack thereof. Right. And as that continues to develop, I almost said starts to develop. It's actually started a while ago. As that continues to develop, as more and more people are developing their social circles, that's kind of filling in those old gaps. You made reference to how it used to be, especially when everything was much more localized. People had their churches or their synagogues or their their community hall or whatever it was. Maybe it was a labor union or something like that. But now that we're becoming a more diverse culture, we're finding new ways to create those social connections. And ultimately, I take a lot of comfort from that, because even though we are in a transition period, I see that as a transition period to something that's better than where we were. So I think it's going to be pretty cool.
Well, sorry. Go ahead, Miss Debbie.
Actually, I will take you up on that. And the only reason I'm going to take you up on that is because I'm also going to bid farewell. I want to say that wherever a person can find solace in community and it is speaking to your heart, do that. Whether it be a church, a community that is online, if it's somewhere, wherever. Right now, there should be no one alone for the holidays. And I want to tell y'all that we have Spirituality Gone Wild doing this again this year for Christmas and Christmas Eve. And on Unify, and everyone is invited, no one alone for the holidays. Come be part of the community. I don't care. Your religion can be your toenail. I really don't care if what you are speaking from your heart is what you're bringing. And I want to honor that there is so much value in our religious systems, in our churches. There's a lot of community. There's a lot of outreach. There's a lot of help. I had Catholic and Pentecostal, United Pentecostal, two extremes. Big. I've been in all of them, basically. What I discovered is God and we got it going on, and what I know is what both of you are speaking of is super vital, important. And somebody out there needs to understand and get, you don't ever have to be alone. And that's what community can bring. And churches are a great way to find it if you can. If not, there's all types of other things. But right here online, through LOA Today, through Spirituality Gone Wild, through Unify. You can join us for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day to just come in our empathy room if you just need someone to talk to. It's free. We don't want anything from you. There's going to be fun prizes. We're making it. It's an ugly sweater. It is yes, it's an ugly sweater party. So bring it, baby. I mean, bring the ugly sweater.
There you go.
I'm even going to show you, and then I'm going to bid farewell. But again, it's definitely a delight to have met you, Jonathan. And I hope you guys continue this conversation because it's quite empowering. I'm going to cover us up for a minute. There is
there we go. The ugly sweater.
Awesome.
So,
man, the unicorn Santa, that's fantastic.
Seriously, isn't it? So, signups are coming from Unify. We talked today and we're finalizing it. So that's wonderful. That's great. And I really appreciate you guys.
And we love you, Debbie, and good luck with the upcoming surgery. I know it's going to go swimmingly for you, and we'll be thinking a lot about you and sending out prayers of positive vibes and so forth. So
I love it. You can still catch me Saturday morning, Unify Women Rising. This week we have Love Heals, and I have the director and the star of that movie, so it's going to be quite phenomenal. And that is at 9 a.m. Pacific. And Jonathan, it's been an honor to meet you.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Bye, y'all.
Have a good day.
See you later, Debbie. Take care. Debbie G. Oh, she's
awesome.
We love her. She is absolutely great. It's kind of sad you weren't here when Neo was here too. Neo Positivity is the other guy who does the show on Friday with us. When the two of them get going, it literally gets to the point where I just kind of sit back and turn the mic off. I mean, they just kind of take over. And it's awesome. It's just fabulous to listen to them. So, yeah, really good.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's that connectedness again, right? The more connections you have, I've just from doing this podcast, I've developed so many great connections, and I value every single one of them. And I've had to lean into them sometimes too for help.
Right.
And it's wonderful to have that network of people who care about you and you care about them. For me, it's the ultimate spiritual experience.
See, we always tell people, we have like our pyramid. And we always tell people that don't get stuck in when we say the word family, not think just biological. Your family is your tribe. It's who you go to. For me, it goes, yes, I have a wife and my 6 kids and great parents and everything. But also part of that support group for me is several chefs. I've got, I've got people that are outside of that bubble as well that don't necessarily fit in the biological realm. That are my family. That's my inner circle. And it's important that you have someone that you can go to and connect with and understand that people care. And I think that's one of the biggest lies I feel like our minds can tell us is that no one cares. No one cares about what happens to me. And at the end of the day, you're affecting someone around you. Somebody cares. There's people around you. And that's the key to me. It's just, when you hear that lie is to push through, and that's when you got to latch on to that inner circle as tight as you can.
I love that. Yeah. And when I also love that this is actually one of those interesting paradox things, because when the pandemic hit, it threw all of us for a loop, and people were kind of confused about what's happening with our lives, all that kind of thing. But it also, it brought us a lot of pain. It brought us a lot of discomfort, but it also brought us some gifts. And one of the gifts was connection online. And we've all been discovering that in a huge way. That's been adding to our social circles in tremendous ways. I mean, here I'm in Connecticut, you're in Mississippi, Debbie G is in Colorado, sometimes she's in Huntington Beach. And we've even had people on from, like South Africa and from Australia and the UK. And I mean, it has become truly a global experience and all the different ways that we're connecting together. So I love what you're saying about how family is more than just the biological family, because that's what's happening. We're all realizing we're part of the same family.
And I think one of the big concerns that I've had over COVID is what's going to be the long-term mental breakdown of what's going to happen, because we have seen a rise in suicide and depression. I believe like the average rate or the average lifespan for adult males has gone down by almost like 7 years, and that's done specifically because of alcohol abuse and suicide, which are, you know, I hate to say it, but almost go hand in hand a little bit. You know, I come from restaurant world where alcohol abuse is just nightly comedy. You know, I hate to say it like that, but that's, you know, if you ever heard about, you know, Anthony Bourdain's backstory and all the things that he went through and the drugs and the alcohol, that's life in the restaurant. You know, I'm not very proud of it, you know, per se, but I mean, that's my past. And that's one of those things that, you know, I've been there, I've done that. I got myself out of it. I got my head above the water. And, you know, I'm worried about, you know, what's going to happen in 10 years. You know, I think ultimately we'll make a full loop back where maybe it's our kids or our grandkids say, okay, we went too far, I guess, down the technology, not connecting. And I'm hoping that there's this circle, like you said, to reconnect deeper, not just have Facebook friends or TikTok followers or Instagrams and, oh, this guy creates the best memes. Are you genuinely connecting with other human beings on a deep level? That's important.
I think it's actually going to be unavoidable. I don't think it honestly can be avoided. I mean, we can try for a certain period of time. We have tried very well for a certain period of time to do just the things you were talking about, you know, the Facebook, the TikTok, all that kind of stuff. But it's starting to get hollow. It's kind of like you know, if you have a one night stand, you know, you do that for a while. It's pretty awful. It's just
you don't feel good about it when you leave.
You don't feel good, no. And
at
some point you say, I want to have permanence. I want to have relationship. You know?
Right.
So you can go down that route, but eventually you come back.
Exactly.
And I think the same thing is happening with the online thing. I mean, I don't think social media is going away. Not by a long shot.
It's never going away.
You know, but I do think that over time, I'm already seeing signs of it on a small scale. And I think it's going to get bigger and bigger. More and more people are going to realize it's not enough because they have gotten the connectivity bug. They have gotten that. And once you get it, it's like the better bug than COVID. COVID is harming to you. You know, the connectivity bug is actually good for you.
Yes.
You know, and as that starts to spread and start, you know, as it goes viral, to use the phrase, I think we end up seeing a virality that actually turns into something pretty cool. It's just something that happens over time, so we don't necessarily notice it unless we're paying attention to it. You have to you have to like be aware. You have to consciously go look for it in order to see it. But if you do, it's there. It's actually happening.
I like that. I agree. Again, I think it's something that I don't know that we'll see in front of us for 5 years, 10 years, but I feel like we're at that point where I feel like everybody, especially coming out of COVID, I feel like everybody's done with the isolationism. Everybody's kind of tired of fake friendships via Instagram. Because at the end of the day, our brains demand the human connection.
They do.
And then when we don't have that human connection, that's when we start to go down south. That's when
it became something to value too, by the way. The pandemic increased the value of that tremendously. Before, I think for a lot of
I think for most people it did.
Yeah.
I think for probably 80 to 90% of everybody probably did.
Yeah.
And again, it's just that last 10% is just, you know, you can really go down depending on how you quarantined out. And I only some reason why I say this because I know a couple of guys who just basically just went into their room, turned on the Xbox, and they just played video games every day for months. Yeah. It's like, dude, you're not connecting with anybody. You're not doing anything. And then of course they go down to like this deep hole, and it's like, man, you got to have connection with other people, you know, that goes beyond, okay, we're going to capture B on the map. You know, it's got to go beyond that of how are you doing? How's your family? How do you feel? You know, what's going on in your life?
Yeah,
you know, what makes you feel good? And I think that's the, you know, again, that's the discussion that men in particular, I feel like we need to have.
Especially men. Yeah. Well, women need to have it too. I mean, I have so many female guests on the show who advocated, so I know women need it too. But I think you're right. I think men are actually more depriving themselves of it than women are these days, although even that's beginning to shift, which is a good thing. But I totally agree. And in fact, I would take it a step further and say, you know, this need for connection is something that we're kind of reaching after instinctively, intuitively.
I think
the pandemic kind of like brought it all to our attention. You know, it kind of like forced itself on us, like, oh wow, yeah, I really miss, you know, not being able to go, you know, spend time with my cousins or whatever.
Yeah.
But
going to the movies.
Now,
it's a weird thing.
Yeah, simple things like that.
I didn't really like the movies before, but
but now you like them, right?
I'm like, man, we're ready to go see Black Panther 2 this weekend.
There you go.
Have some fun and have a blast. But when you need that connection. I feel like there's just something there. And I think a lot of it comes down to my brother, Dr. J, and I were having this discussion on our podcast with Frosty Banks from the Frosty Banks Show. And we were talking about our primal instincts to connect. And we were talking, I think, specifically on the fireplace or the grill or whatever that might be. I feel like there's a certain amount of, our instincts that want us to connect. Because you go back to your primal human, our Neanderthal, caveman, the most basic primal. Well, when the fire was lit, that was the first time that we created a society. Because what happened? All of us came in. We put something over the fire. We began our first communication. And there's something about our brain since that point on, since we developed those relationships around the campfire, that we now crave that. And I'm a firm believer that that's why men, we love to grill out. That's why we see fire and we have to watch it.
That's I don't know. Good theory. I like that.
I can go anywhere and I see a fire.
Is that a chef's theory? I just got to ask you, is that a chef's theory? I mean, because chefs are always grilling. I mean, that's what a chef does.
I mean, believe it or not, it was my senior thesis for my culinary degrry.
It was, okay.
Where I can't remember all the stats and everything from it. I had several, I remember quoting stuff from like some studies from Cambridge. And I just remember it being kind of this, I don't know, kind of this aha moment for me, because again, I'm a guy. I love anything that flames up, it burns, and I love grilling. And I don't like just wood, the briquettes. I like wood. I like to grill over wood. I feel like that's just unique flavor. It's got its own thing. Again, it takes me back to that primal. I got to start the fire. I got to baby that thing the right way. The same thing with smoked meats. There's just something about it that just takes us back to our primal urge to just be with community. And I think our brains go back to, again, being the first time that we sat around the fire and, we interacted with other human beings, and we survived together. We helped each other.
I love that. And I especially love that it provides a counterbalance to what I think most of us have, perhaps as a stereotype about what it's like to be a chef, what a chef's life is. And when you've lived it, you can actually tell us in great detail. But I mean, chefs work hard. They work in an industry that's very unpredictable. I mean, they try to make it as predictable as they can, especially if they're running the show.
It's controlled chaos. It's controlled chaos.
Yeah,
it is. It's controlled chaos.
And it's continuous.
It is. Yeah. It's 96-hour work weeks.
Yeah.
What's great about the chef's life, and I'm now a corporate chef. I now work for a food distributor, and I get to kind of work my 8-to-5 job a little bit. I don't necessarily do the day-to-day. I'm not having to work on the line, but even now, part of me misses being on the line. As weird as that is.
Yeah.
Because I had my tribe, and that was my connection group. The guys who I had on my line at my last restaurant, those guys were my best friends. I was with them every day. I knew Taylor, Brian. I knew those guys, and Vu. I had their back every day, all day. They had my back. There was just this level of tribe that happened that if I missed something, I knew they would get it, and vice versa. I could just about predict them to the T on how they were going to be on Sunday brunch. We all knew each other's strengths, our weaknesses, how the day was going to play out. There is tribalism that kind of goes in that in a good way in restaurants. And once you're into it, you get really into it, and it's hard to get out. But part of that tribalism can also be destructive. I had a culinary instructor that told me, it was like first day in culinary school. And he looked at us and he said, every single one of you will have a drug. Some of you, that might be marijuana. Some of you, that might be cocaine. Some of you, however, are going to choose to do the right thing and find a positive drug. You're going to focus that on family, your faith. And it's up to you to decide where you're going to be. But you will have to have some kind of addiction to get you through this life. And it's up to you to find a positive addiction rather than a negative addiction. And I spent a lot of time on the negative addiction. I found out that, all this partying and hanging out with the boys and going to these different clubs and bars and stuff after our shifts and buying drinks, all that was just, like you said, it's superficial.
Yeah.
And then there's this life over here where I'm focusing on my faith, family, and I'm really deep diving into relationships because my judgment is not clouded.
You're calling it faith. I would call it mindset. I think we're kind of pretty much talking about the same thing.
Yeah,
And it's
for
interesting.
sure.
It's interesting how mindset always comes first. It has to come first, no matter what topic you're talking about. Doesn't matter what the topic is.
It's the framework that holds everything else. Because without the right mindset, you won't understand what your family really is. You definitely won't understand your finance, and you're definitely held back in like that freedom to do the right thing. Anytime that moral compass is off, you have that quick ability to suddenly start making bad decisions. Everybody kind of goes through it at some point in time in their life of, oh man, I really want to buy, I don't know, how do I say it? So like when, as a chef, especially when I didn't have a good moral compass, my first thing was I wanted to buy something that brought me instant gratification. It was all about instant for me.
That's the era we live in.
Yeah. I mean, I don't live for 12 days. I live for right now. I only have money for right now. And then when you get down in that world, you can't possibly think about, well, what's going to happen in 12 years? And now my life has turned into, I'm now planting the seeds for what's going to happen for me 10 years from now. And just kind of that mindset change of quit worrying about the next 10 minutes, focus on the next 10 years. Everything I save is going to benefit me in 10 years. Everything that I consume, it can either benefit me or waste my time in 10 years. And that's another part that I've had to learn. Is what I've consumed is just as bad as about what I spend money on, because what I'm spending time doing is also part of that investment.
But by the way, while you were talking about working on the line, Jeffrey, one of the live streamers, put in a comment. He says, "Please remember to appreciate your dishwasher too."
Believe it or not, my dishwashers are the highest paid people in my kitchens. Just about.
Is that right? Okay.
Listen, they deserve all the respect. I can do a lot of things. I don't mind washing dishes. It's one of those things where I'll go over there and I help out. I require all of my line cooks to go over there and help my dishwashers before they leave at night. They're just as important as anybody else. Their task, they touch more plates and affect more customers than a line cook does any day. And that's again why you've got to respect everyone from the bottom all the way up to the top. And you got to take care of those guys. At the end of the day, if you don't, you're going to be there at 2 a.m. washing dishes yourself.
It really comes down to all the basics. We've already talked a bit about the mindset. Appreciation is a big part of all that.
For sure.
Appreciating and feeling gratitude for the people that you're working with, for the people that you're serving, for the people that are supporting you. I mean, it goes on and on. It's almost endless. And that appreciation, I don't think we give it enough credit. I mean, here on this show, we give it credit a lot, but I think as a society, we don't give appreciation enough credit, because appreciation, that's what takes us to the better mindset. That's what takes us to the better choices. That's what takes us to the appreciation of family and of fun and of finances and of freedom and all the other F's, whatever F you got on the list. It all comes in with appreciation. So here's to appreciation.
That goes into that top category of things that we desire. We desire the human interaction. I think probably the second place to that by a slim margin is appreciation. I think when we, what do we want from our spouse as men? We talk about, we might want these different sexual favors or whatever, but what do we really want from our spouse? Men typically, they just want their spouse to appreciate what they do, that they go into work and they do their thing. We talk about, I really want my woman to do this. I really want my woman to do that. No, you want to feel appreciated. You want your spouse to show you or to say to you that I appreciate your hard work. Thank you for your 50 hours or 80 hours, whatever it might be that you worked in your job. Thank you for doing your part. Thank you for being a good spouse. You're doing a good job. That's what we as men want. we like to talk about the other things and joke about the gifts and the favors, if you will, but that's really not what we desire. We desire appreciation.
And I think it also flips around too, because if you were to ask men what's most important to them where their women are concerned, they want their women to feel happy, to be happy. They want their women to have good life.
Right.
And when you look at it that way, all of a sudden, all that other stuff is kind of silly by comparison. Yeah. This is the depth. This is where the deep stuff is.
I agree.
So this is pretty cool stuff. I do want to touch a little bit, excuse me, on the chef's world, because you do come from that when you have that in your background. You talked a little bit about how you experienced the dark side and then you switched over to the light side. I just wanted to get kind of like a flavor of what that dark side is. I mean, I think we can all kind of imagine to a certain degree, but I'm not so sure that most people truly grasp how, what's the word I'm looking for? How much you just kind of dive into that world and you stay in that world when you're floating on the negative side.
Well, especially when you're diving into it and that's your culture and that's your world, that just becomes your reality. You don't really understand that there's actually real culture that goes on outside of it. You're really deep dived in because you're spending 40 at minimum. I'm assuming you're just a basic hourly cook. You're spending at least 40 hours a week in this little mini subculture. And each restaurant has its own mini subculture. And, that's one of the things that, as I work now as a consultant is, are you building the right culture that's going to bring you positive workplace to get the best out of your employees, to get the best dishes, to have your employees stay around the longest. So it's key that we're focusing on positive culture within our business. And then, once we develop that culture, even from there, to continue for it to grow. I think what can easily happen is, the restaurant that I had issues in was just, I was a good student. I had a lot of good things going for me. I had straight A's. I had a lot of great things going for me. But all it took was to get into that one of those bad cultures where it was okay. I'd never smoked before. And the only way that you got a break was to go take a smoke break. That was the only way that you got a break. Wow. So I started smoking. And then, at 19 years old, I figured out booze. I never really had alcohol. I grew up in a very conservative household. My dad was a pastor. I didn't grow up around alcohol. So now I have all this alcohol that comes in. And again, it just kind of piles in on you. And it happens to almost every cook at some point in time because all the stuff gets piled in. And then you add in you definitely don't talk about mental health in restaurants. Mental health, you're going to get made fun of. Yeah. We don't talk about like our physical strength as well. It's very easy in the restaurants to get beat down really hard. I mean, it's very physically challenged. People talk about, construction workers. Well, chefs it's the same thing. It's a constant all day. I'm not talking about fast food. Go sit in like a nice fine dine restaurant and watch those guys work. It is physical. I mean, there's a lot of love and there's lots of passion in it, but it's very, very physical work. So our bodies actually get broken down over time. And then not that it's the same by any means, but it reminds me of like the constant beat down of someone like in the military would take, because military people are too stuck in their culture. When they're off and they're in their little world, that's their culture and that's their thing. Restaurant, chefs are the same way. Our bodies get beat down and we're not really focusing necessarily on the things that could be making us better. We're just fighting for the next 10 minutes.
That's a really important point. And the reason I think it's important is because it illustrates just how difficult it is to make the shift. Now, in general, in life, when somebody makes a shift,
they're very tough.
Yeah. Well, when somebody makes a shift, most often it's because they hit bottom in some way. They hit such a bad crash and burn that it's too much, So that happened to you too. That's what you're saying. How often does that really happen though? I mean, how many people are actually in the restaurant world going down that dark path and crashing and burning and not actually making the decision to shift? Or is it happening more often
than I realize? What happens is a lot of them don't shift. They'll just reach a certain point where they just ride it out.
Yeah.
I remember my breaking point, and I literally went so far down the rabbit hole that, you know, I was literally, I remember to this day just being in the car and I had both hands on my steering wheel. I remember looking up, and then about, you know, 800 yards to a mile, whatever away, I could see a middle wall barrier. And I remember just sitting there. It's like, I remember just putting my foot down on the gas. And I remember just being like, I can do it. I can end it here. This will be the end of it. And then I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to deal with the stress. I don't have to deal with the pressure that comes in on being the chef. I don't have to worry about, am I letting someone down? Am I going to keep my job? You know, Google reviews, Yelp, you know. And I remember riding out that I probably stayed on that track for like 600 to 800 yards. And then literally I got a text from my mom.
Really?
I got it. And people always talk about how people's moms have a sixth sense. My mom has a sixth sense. And all she texted me was, I love you and I'm praying for you.
Wow.
And then I remember just, I got myself back out of it. I snapped out of it. I got to the restaurant. I was there about 2 hours early than my shift. I couldn't sleep, so I just got up and went. And I remember just sitting in the car and just crying. And, you know, again, as a man, that's not something we like to talk about, but it was just this moment of, I'm over this. I'm tired of not taking care of myself. I'm tired of not being there with my family. I've missed so many events. You know, my 18-year-old, she's a junior in college. I've missed ballet recitals, soccer games with my sons, football games. If it wasn't taken out or wasn't happening at the restaurants, it just didn't happen for me. I didn't get to go.
No.
I didn't get to enjoy it. I didn't get to go on vacation. I worked. And all of that moment, that was the moment of everything's going to change now. I'm not going back. I'm tired of being talked to in a certain way. I'm tired of being expected to work as, you know, it felt like it's slavery. I mean, I was working 80 plus hours a week, and there's a certain point that your body just cannot do that, you know? So, I mean, I just kind of worked up to this point of just, I'm done. And then from there it was, okay, I read a couple books that helped me control out what I was going to care about, what I didn't care about. And then from there it was, you know, having positive conversations with people like Mr. Walt Thiessen and all these people that help provide positive energy to move me in the right direction.
Well, it also took you deciding to make a shift.
It has to come from the person. If it comes from somebody else, it's not authentic. And if it's not authentically from that person, it's not going to stick. It's straight up. It's not going to stick. It has to be a personal decision from your heart that what I'm doing is not good for me. And you can't, when you're making that decision, it's not about necessarily what's good for your family. It's not necessarily what's good for your neighbor. It has to be what's good for you and your heart. And you have to make that decision of, okay, I need to do better. And if I focus on me, if you focus in on yourself, I feel like the others will take care of itself. If I'm focused on just taking care of me, am I being a good dad? Then my relationship with my kids are going to be better. I don't have to worry about what my kids think of me. I'm just going to worry about me and take care of that. And it was the same thing with my work. Now it's no longer about, I got to do blah, 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 blah. I'm like, am I doing the best at my job today? Did I do a good job? Did I complete my job to the best of my ability? And sometimes you have to be honest with yourself. No, I skimped out on the effort. Well, tomorrow we got to go in, reset. You got to give your best effort. Everything deserves your best effort, but that doesn't mean that you have to care about every single thing that goes on around you. Again, that's why we say focus on our 5 F's. The 5 F's to give an F about.
I like that. And ultimately, the way I would express it is, what you decided to do was to change your response.
Exactly.
Up until that point, you had chosen to respond the way you'd always responded, the same way every single day. And on that day, when you finally decided to flip the switch, so to speak, you said, I'm going to respond differently, which is, by the way, a daring thing to do, because it's so easy to stay in what they often call the comfort zone. I call it the familiar zone, where you're just doing that same thing over and over because you're used to it. It's, you know, it's safe. There's a safety factor going on there. It's hard to shift out of that.
And it's also, your pure response for when you do make that switch.
Yeah.
When I made that switch, you know, I'd gone so far down the rabbit hole. Now I had been sober at this point. I've been off drugs and things like that before this point. But it was, even when I made the switch and I told my wife, I'm like, I'm changing, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. She looked at me and she's just like, I've heard this before. I love you. Did I've heard before that you're going to spend more time with us, that you're going to do A, B, and C and go to these events. And she's right. I can't be mad at her when I'm the one who's been messing up over the course of our 10-year marriage. That was the thing that hurt, I think, a little bit the most. And that kind of helped made it stick a little bit, was my wife was just honest with me and say, okay, you said this time, and I love you and I'm willing to help support you, but you've told me this before. So what are we going to do that's going to help you make the change?
That was a gift. That was a real
gift. Is because, again, the opposite reaction happened with my cooks. When I told my cooks that, you know what, I need to take a step back. I've gone too far. And I didn't tell them about the suicide thoughts and all those things. I didn't go down that rabbit hole as much of, when I found the new job, I wanted to bring them in individually because, again, they were brothers and sisters to me. So I brought them in one by one to talk to them about it. And then a lot of them, some of them gave me the big old hug and we're going to miss you. And then some of them, I got to cussing out. Like, this is bull crap. This is not what we do. We're chefs. We basically say, we embrace the negative lifestyle. We embrace the drugs and everything else. It's like, no, look, this is not good. And again, some of those people I'm friends with today, and they've kind of come out to the other side of the world as well. And I'm very proud.
You had an influence on them. That's a good thing.
I'd like to say yes. I think a lot of it came down to all of us at the same point. I was at a 5-diamond hotel, and so we worked 24/7. It's just constantly going. And, there was a lot of pressure on us to keep things going, and we didn't have a big crew. We're doing $10.5 million with basically 9 kitchen employees.
Wow.
So we're just cranking out food all day. And again, like I said, I had the best team in the business. I loved my team. We were really close. I'm friends with every single one of them to this day. But I think a lot of us were kind of in that point. And after I stepped away, I think that was that moment of maybe he was onto something that no human can sustain what we were doing. Right. And again, the business at the time would not fluctuate on the business model. They're like, well, you guys are doing it, so why would we want to add more people in? I was like, because we can't keep doing this. We got to have some kind of balance.
That's a beautiful level of honesty. I love that. Hey, the podcast is A Brodacious Life. And by the way, if you want to know what that was, check out the early part of this podcast. You'll find out what the bro part of Brodacious is all about. But Jonathan, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Tell people how they can find the Brodacious Life. I imagine it's anywhere, but what's the easiest way to get there?
So obviously you can hop on Brodaciouslife.com. You'll be able to hear some episodes that are there. You'll also be able to hit our subscribe to our newsletter. There you can have our podcast episodes delivered right into your email. Also in that email is a piece that has really helped me out over the last year now that I've made that big change. So one of the things that I needed was structure in my life. I was, being a chef, I've gotten used to structure, but I wasn't using structure in the proper way. So one of the things that Dr. J really helped me with is we created a Brodacious journal. And what it does is it helps you set goals and, helps you keep your mindset straight for the week. So you're not kind of just going all over the place like a chicken with your head cut off. So you can get that, though. It's a free PDF. You can download it. I have mine downloaded into my iPad so I can write on it, in my iPad. And I literally do that every single morning. First thing I do when I wake up. And I feel so much better when I do it. When I don't do it, my day feels absolutely askew. So it's one of those things that I highly recommend. And again, it's completely free. And but you can find the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can hop over on YouTube and you'll be able to find us on YouTube as well at A Brodacious Life.
Beautiful. And we'll make sure we'll include a link to abrodaciouslife.com in the show notes so that we'll give people the easy way to find it. We like to make it as easy
Thank
as
you so much. Thank you.
But Jonathan, again, thank you so much for being on the program. One last thing I want to tell you that I tell all my guests who are givers, and you're clearly a giver who's trying very much to help other people who've been in the same place that he's been in. There are many people who you've never met, you've never seen, They heard your podcast. They saw you visiting a podcast like ours. They saw something that was on your website. They saw something that you put out there or heard something that you put out there, and you touched their lives in ways that you'll never know about. I think it's important to recognize that. So on their behalf, thank you for what you've been doing for those people that you'll never meet and that you'll never see, and what you're continuing to do for those people that you'll never meet and that you'll never see.
Well, thank you, Walt. I really appreciate it, and thank you for having me on the show today. I've been so blessed to hang out with you guys today.
This has been fun. We really enjoyed it. So thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.